Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to view The Infernal Machine. So, we have a film that is to focus upon a writer named Bruce Cogburn. It seems that this character is getting these mysterious letters, these mysterious packages, from a man named William DeKent. And so, Bruce, it seems, is to immediately start to get annoyed with this, to just be like, hey, like, who gave out my address? Who gave out my information? And so Bruce, it seems, is to try to call this person to hope that this one phone call would get them to stop. To just like, okay, like, well, hey, like, best of luck on your writing, but like, I have no interest in like doing an interview or helping anybody. Like, I'm sorry, but the further and further we just have this person who is very persistent, the more and more Bruce is to get upset, aggravated, and to the point of him just like hoping that this person is to go away, to the point of Bruce even trying to track down the origin of where these letters are coming from. The further and further we go through this story, we more start to realize that things aren't what they seem. That we have certain characters who are to be playing certain roles, and we would think Bruce can turn to those people, and come to find out they aren't who they say they are. To where Bruce, it seems, is the further and further we go down this rabbit hole, we're having him start to go on and not know who exactly to trust, as Bruce has gone on and been played by a number of people to be pushed into being a part of his own story that is to be perfectly paged out to him, line by line, word by word. And so Bruce is starting to realize, okay, like, somebody's messing with me, somebody's making my life their story, and I'm going to try to get even with them by forcibly trying to do the one thing that a author should not do for a story, and that, of course, is to have the character do nothing, not progress the story at all, not to have it go anywhere. But Bruce continues to be more and more curious, to where he is to want to solve this puzzle, to figure out where this story is going. And by the end of it, we find the connection, as it seems at some point this story is to be spoon-fed to us little by little. So this movie is very stretched out. And so I can say, like, if this movie was heavily edited, I would much enjoy this movie a lot better. But considering this movie is very stretched out the way it is, like, I was like, well, like, is the payout at the end of this worth it to go through a stretched out film? And I would have to say yes. But still, there's just a lot of little pieces that are kind of annoying that build up to us finally understanding what all this means. And to me, it almost comes off like the number 23 in a way. Where, of course, if you've ever gone on to see like the Jim Carrey movie, The Number 23, this and that kind of feels somewhat similar. So, and we also had Bruce, who was to have his book be tied to some shooting. And so this kid was, of course, to blame this book for messing him up. And he, of course, was trying to pull the Billy and Stu from Scream defense of like, oh, well, this book just made me do it, and so on and so forth. So we also have Bruce, who is to kind of be infamous in that way of everybody kind of knowing this guy's book simply because of that horrific event. So to the point where even Bruce was to have to describe to a person in this movie what this book was about, and so Bruce briefly goes over it. So, with that said, I am just going to go on and let everybody know where they can go on to see this movie for absolutely free. Because this one is a positive, but it's very close to being in the negative. It's very close. Because there's so many scenes that are just like, man, really? This film? So a lot of people probably feel two different ways about it. Some people really solidly like this film, and some people will just hate how boring it is. And some people may be caught in the middle just because of like, meh, like I had X number of minutes to spend. Why not watch this? So, and I know that's like I should go on and have a definitive like I definitely gave a thumbs up, but it's just like it's a boring film. Um, so with that said, let's go on and talk about where you can go on and see this film. Well, considering it's premium access right now for like $4.99 or whatever it is, so um, I of course would go on and mention a number of apps here. The first one I would go on and mention is an app called Doxy, Doxcy. A number of times when movies go into premium access, that would be the first thing to recommend. Next, after that, of course, would be me having you go into a Google Play Store and search out the words box and then space UHD. And you'll come to find out that there is another app that is to be Play UHD and it has a logo that says Fox HD Movies. Go ahead and download that and be able to hopefully watch The Infernal Machine or a number of other movies for absolutely free. And then, like the last thing that I'd probably recommend is either 123 Movies, or you can probably go through a Google search and search the word Yes Movies, and at some point you'll be able to find an app, either through that or just search the word Movies app and probably find some bootleggish thing that'll fit your phone device, whatever. So, now let's go on into double five time territory. Let's go into spoilers about this movie because it's about that time yet again. Let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time you spoil this movie. So, in the very beginning of the film, we have Bruce who ends up getting this unusual letter. So, it seems that this letter is to mention, as Bruce is to read all of it, that this, of course, to be a guy who needs some mentoring with writing his book, and is to hope that Bruce will be willing to go on and help him. And so it seems that Bruce has no real interest in doing anything like this. Bruce is to drive quite a bit of miles to find some random phone booth to then go on and tell this person via phone call. It's like, well, hey, like, I no longer go on and do interviews. Like, I have no interest in going on and mentoring anybody or helping anybody else out. And that also, like, if you've read my book, you would probably get the gist of who I am and so on and so forth. So Bruce is to go on and say, like, well, like, hey, best of luck for you on your book. I know a blank page is a bit of a nightmare, but like I have no interest in helping you. Click. So Bruce goes on to have called this person via this answering machine, and so Bruce is to hope that that phone call is to just resolve all this. So Bruce is to continue on getting these letters regardless of what he says. And so Bruce is to start to get upset at this point. And so Bruce then goes on and is to call this person again to now state that it's like, every time I have to come in here and make this phone call, like I have to drive all the way down here, 14 miles and so on and so forth, to make this call. And so Bruce is to go on and tell this person, it's like, hey, like, I have no interest in helping you. Like, in part of the letter, you are to mention why I was never go on and do another book, and you of course you are to know why, because of the shooting that happened afterwards, that was tied to this book. So it basically just ruined Bruce's career to or have any real interest to have Bruce write another story. So Bruce goes on to also state uh, for this guy to leave him alone, and Bruce is going to get rid of his P.O. box, so this guy will stop sending him letters through this. I think we also had Bruce who was to mention, like, I don't know how you had gotten this address. It must have been like my agent who just gave away this address by accident, so on and so forth. So, anyways, we have Bruce uh, who gets rid of his P.O. box, and we instead start to have these packages being delivered to Bruce's place. And so he starts looking through and seeing what this package has, and it's very unusual. And so now we go on to have Bruce, who is like threatening this guy. He is calling him, stating that uh, that hey, like I have a gun, like I am I'm well trained on it, so on and so forth. Like, do not send another person to my property, yada yada yada. So, but this guy, like, who's consistently sending these packages, continues to come regardless. To the point of now Bruce is to have gotten a dog named Saul, who seems to be this kind of attack dog, this trained dog. So, as Bruce is to mention, like, the history of this dog named Saul, and how it seems that this dog's name is to be somehow attached to a guy who uh, kind of thrusted himself upon his own sword. So Bruce is to go on and at some point get drunk. And so now Bruce is going on and leaving a number of messages to this guy, just saying like, well, hey man, like at least you're persistent. Like, I'll give you that. But then all of a sudden Bruce is to mention, it's like, well, hey, like here's a quote that you can use on your book, and use my name. And so Bruce ends up going on and giving him a quote that makes this guy out to be like kind of a douchebag, but it is what it is. So, but Bruce continues on, continuously giving this answering machine a real workout, having Bruce talking about like the flat world or the flat Earth and everything like that, and all of his thoughts and his just random things that just keep popping into his brain. And so Bruce at some point is to finally turn and just say like, okay, like I think I'm just going to go on and invite this guy to a certain location to hope that I can just kind of meet with him and resolve all this finally. So Bruce is to mention that he's going to be in this location, and so it seems that Bruce is to finally just show up. Bruce ends up getting stood up by this guy, as Bruce is to think that a number of people are to walk their way to this location. Bruce is thinking, oh, this is the guy, and come to find out it's not. So Bruce is to be kind of upset that he was stood up by this guy, to where he goes back to this phone booth to then call him and say like, well, like I like had way more important things to do, so I wasn't even thinking about coming to this location, but I did, and it seems that you stood me up. So Bruce again is kind of still like insulted and whatever. So we start to have Cogburn that is to realize that these letters are just continuing to come regardless of whatever he does. So, considering Bruce is to realize where this is coming from, we then have Bruce trying to track down the location of where this letter is being sent, and Bruce is to realize that there is no thing of where this is legitimately getting sent from. So Bruce is to also realize that the company that sends out these letters doesn't have a red vehicle. Normally, all the vehicles are all white. And so Bruce is like, okay, so like somebody is trying to pretend that they are this messaging service, and this does not seem right. As Bruce had forcibly gone on and had this messenger toss all these messages into this barrel, so at some point Bruce will burn them all. But while also Bruce had gone on to be drunk and been numerously uh, trying to call this guy and leaving all these messages, we have Bruce that falls asleep in the phone booth, and we have an Officer Higgins that wakes him up. Officer Higgins wants to go on and take Bruce and bring him back to the precinct so that way she can write him out for being drunken in public. And so Bruce is like, but I was in a phone booth. And the officer is like, well, like you were still in public. So it seems that now Bruce can go on and turn to Officer Higgins to possibly continue this investigation. And so Bruce, of course, to go on and find Officer Higgins on her day off. And while it seems that her daughter is playing on this, what would be the word? Uh, the place where they have like a lot of swings and a lot of stuff like I don't want to say like an obstacle course, but it's a playground. Playground. There we go. So we have Bruce who's trying to talk to Officer Higgins about how it seems that someone is trying to figure out a way to send these things to him, and so on and so forth. And so the more and more that Bruce is to start to uncover and unravel things, the more he is to get uneasy about what he is to find. Because we again have Bruce running off to this phone booth to go on and find out the gas station that was connected to this phone booth. Come to find out, as Saul is to go on with Bruce, we have Saul all of a sudden chomping on this bone. And so Bruce is to follow Saul into this location and starts looking around. All of a sudden, Bruce is to spot that there, of course, is to be the answering machine of which that he has called numerous times on, and Bruce is to go on and notice all of these pages all over this wall. So we also come to find that when both Bruce and Officer Higgins makes their way into this gas station, they notice that there is some VHS tape in this gas station, and it's labeled interrogation. So Bruce plays the tape, and it seems that this is to be a young Dwight Tufford who was to have gone on and assassinated 13 people. And so he's being interrogated and talking about how he's blaming this book because the book really messed him up. And so he turned around and shot, of course, all these people. But then we also have Dwight, who turns to look at the camera and is to start talking to it, thinking that he's going to go on and speaking to the author. And so Bruce is like, oh my god, this is trippy. So Bruce then turns around to ask Officer Higgins if she knows anybody from this police station or from this prison that Dwight is in, to just kind of talk to him. So Bruce, we come to find, is to go to this prison where Dwight is to be. And so Bruce is to talk to Dwight, and Dwight is to mention at some point the main focus of this whole, like, them getting together, is that Dwight is to say that someone was to go on and give him a message that Bruce Cogburn, the author of this story, will see him one day. And Dwight then realizes that Bruce is in front of him, and Dwight is to go on and blame Bruce for him being here. So Dwight starts going on and beating up all of these security guards. And so Bruce, after everything seems to be safe and in the clear, Bruce then goes on to get out of here, and come to find out, Bruce at his place is to be questioned by U.S. Marshals. And Bruce is like, well, why are you guys here? Because the U.S. Marshals ask Bruce, it's like, well, hey, like, you went on and talked to Dwight, to Ford yesterday. And Bruce is like, well, yeah. And they're like, well, why? And we had Bruce that was saying, like, well, just for catching up purposes. Because we had Dwight, who was going on and stating that anybody would probably be an interviewer or to be a writer to try to write this guy's story, and instead it was a writer nonetheless. But so, come to find out, Dwight had somehow escaped prison and is to be on the run. So immediately we have Bruce Cogburn, who you would think would be under, like, protective custody or something like that, knowing that this guy is going to manhunt and come after Bruce. But, like, they do not, like, they don't have, like, a detective detail for him or anything. They just go on like, oh, okay, well, like, since you aren't going to give us any answers, we're not going to protect you. So now we have Bruce, who is to turn around and start to look into certain people here. And so Bruce is to start to look into Officer Higgins. And so Bruce at first is to follow Officer Higgins' daughter. And so Bruce follows her to this this acting session, and Bruce finds out here that this girl is to actually be the daughter of this stage manager. Bruce is like, wait a minute, like, this should be Officer Higgins's daughter. Wait a minute, like, this girl was to be paid to be an actress for Officer Higgins. So Bruce is now going like, okay, now I need to figure out where Officer Higgins is so I can confront her about all this. So Bruce comes to find out that Officer Higgins is in some restaurant, it seems, and Bruce meets up with Higgins to find out that she was to be paid to orchestrate all of this. And so we have Higgins that is to at this point realize that Bruce is to have a gun, but she is to get all of the bullets from out of the gun, so that way Bruce does not use it. So Higgins is to mention like that she is connected to something that she will not go on and tell Bruce what it is, and that she was paid handsomely to go on and manipulate Bruce into having her be this phony cop instead of Bruce going to the real cops, and so on and so forth. So, but we also have Bruce who is to get this, because Bruce is to go on and he is to try and call his agent and ask his agent at one point, or his producer, his writer producer, like where she gave away his address to people. And his producer is like, oh no, I didn't do anything like that. Like, I didn't tell anybody what your address was. And he's like, sure you didn't. So Bruce is to go on and is to continue to talk to his producer and find out that it seems there is this story that she was given, and Bruce is like, wait a minute, what? Like, I didn't send you anything. And she's like, well, like, we have this whole story and it sounds just like you, and so like let me know when you want me to put this out to the presses and get another book out there. And Bruce is like, no, like, send me the book. So every single page of this book is identical to what had actually happened to Bruce. And so now, like, Bruce is just very uneasy about all of this. So, push further into the film. So, Bruce is to go on and tell this answering machine that he will not go on and do anything further to push this story, because he knows that this guy's writing every bit of it and using this guy's life as a way to just make a buck. So Bruce will not give in to this. But then, come to find out, we go on to have, if Bruce will not come to the story, then the story will come to Bruce. So we have Dwight that goes on to make it to Bruce's home and is starting to fire into it. Bruce is to try and scramble and get these, like the guns and the bullets and stuff together, but it seems that Bruce is to instead just have this one thing that he can use to go against Dwight to fire this one shot, and that's all he gets. So Dwight is to have gotten Bruce's sniper rifle, and is to mention, it's like, man, if only I could have gotten this sniper rifle, like, I could have shot a lot more people than I shot before, and like, it's such a shame. So Dwight is to mention about the 8 people that he had killed, and Bruce is like, well, what about the other 5? Like, what are they guilty of? And Dwight is like, well, I guess they were all just like running in a straight line, like that's what they were guilty of. So Dwight is to go on and start to ask Bruce a number of things about this book because he desperately wants to know. And so Dwight is like, yeah, give me the answers. I need to know what this story is really about. And so finally, by the end of this, when Bruce is to turn around and kill Dwight for self-defense, Bruce then goes on and is to mention before he kills Dwight that he never wrote the story. It's like, what? He never wrote the book. He ghostwrited it. So, come to find out, Bruce was to be this this writer teacher, where he would go on and find a number of students that are all to be potential writers, potential professional writers. And so Bruce would go on and mentor all of these students, and he would hopefully figure out a way to guide them and motivate them. And he went on to find this one writer named Elijah, and Bruce was to really start to piece through this guy's story and really start to like it. And Bruce was to say, it's like, you know what, Elijah, like there's something here. Like there's like some, you just got to really dig deep. You got to really um, come up with something. And so it seems at one point we are to find Bruce in a place where Elijah had gone on to dig himself way too deeply, to the point of having every little thing around him being some page from some story. And Bruce is to make his way to Elijah to convince Elijah to not go on and burn himself to death, where it seems that Elijah has possibly doused himself with some kind of gasoline, as we are to not to have seen, we just assume. And so Elijah is to put up the slider and douse himself into flame and die. So we are to have assumed, but what ends up actually happening is that Elijah was somehow to have been sent to the hospital, and they ended up reviving him after he had been dead for an X number of minutes, and they are now trying to keep him alive with these machines. And so at one point we have Bruce and Elijah's parents contemplating whether or not to keep him alive, because it's like, I don't know. So it seems that Bruce is to realize that the Infernal Machine could possibly be a wasted opportunity, especially if Elijah is to die off. And so Bruce is to go on and himself steal this story and put it out so he can go on and get some book out there. And so while Bruce is going on and trying to write possibly his next story, or to possibly just write some little like couple of pages uh, response upon a reemergence of the Infernal Machine again, to just be put out in a new cover or a new this or new that. So we have Bruce, who is to start to put all these pieces together, start to figure it out. And so we had Bruce that was to realize every time he would pass by this one tower that the radio station all of a sudden would have this like weird thing to it. And we of course had Officer Higgins, that when she heard this radio station, she was trying to adjust it to get to some other station. And Bruce realized that Higgins was trying to do that really quickly, and Bruce is like, okay, what was that about? So more and more Bruce is to realize that there must have been some connection with this tower to all of this. So Bruce goes to this tower to find out that this signal was to go on and give this certain sequence. And so Bruce makes it to this place to find out that this doctor is there with an empty bed. And Bruce is just like, okay, this is unusual. So Bruce finally goes on and sees who the culprit of all of this really and truly is. And it ends up being all along to be Elijah, who is still alive. He is to go on and use this kind of oxygen machine to keep alive, but he, I guess, had recovered from his coma and realized how Bruce had took advantage of Elijah, stealing his story, as if this is basically just like the movie The Secret Window. You stole my story. And so now we have Elijah again, who is giving Bruce another opportunity to steal yet another story, as Elijah is to go on and tell Bruce, it's like, well, hey, like, since, like, it's not long before I die, like, I can go on and give you another story for you to use. And so, like, this is a story of your own. And so, this is your life. And why can't you just go on and use this story for your own? And Bruce is kind of tempted with this, but he does not go through with it. So, after it seems that both Bruce and Elijah meet up, we all of a sudden have this weird, goofy, like, uh, kind of thing that is to somehow continue to be connected from one piece to the other, and as if this is some weird contraption, this weird, bizarre thing that is to have all these pieces fall together in perfect ways that are to possibly, by the end of this, lead to some explosion or some death. And so it seems by the end of this, we have Bruce who goes on to walk away from all this and no longer wants to, I'm sure, become an author ever again. Um, but instead, Bruce is finally going to go on and to deliver his producer a letter that is to be the truth. And that is the last thing that Bruce is to go on and do here, is to deliver the legitimate truth, the real story. And he is to mail this letter to this woman, telling her that he never wrote this story, then it said Elijah did, and so on and so forth. So, that, of course, is to wrap up this story. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about this film, because at the end of the day, I think it's about that time to just say, I'm going to get out of here. Hopefully, I covered kind of everything for the most point. There's a lot of times I just kind of rush this because there's like a long stretch of a film, and so I want to just try to make this short. Either way, at the end of the day, I'm just going to go on and just say goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.